All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we'll get started where everyone else does. As far as earliest childhood memories, what are we getting into?
I think pertaining to like my whole life, I remember watching Jackie Chan in Rumble in the Bronx.
Okay.
Rumble in the Bronx. That's like I love Jackie Chan.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking it was so cool to do all this martial arts stuff.
Yeah.
Beat all the bad guys and all that kind of wacky stuff.
What age do you think that was at?
I had to have been real young.
Yeah.
I don't know when the movie came out, but I know I was like super impressionable.
Okay.
So I had to have been like 5, 6 or something like that.
So when you saw that, did you go out and start like trying the moves on like family members or what was going on?
No. I just had like this obsession with like, man, it would be super dope to be like a superhero or like a secret spy. I didn't know martial arts and all this kind of stuff. And I've always had it in the back of my head, and I never really did any kind of like martial arts until I was about 19.
Okay.
So I did like some.
So we had some stuff beforehand.
Yeah. So I did some boxing for a little bit. I tried some sports in high school, but I'm just terrible at sports. I'm not good at it.
As far as elementary school goes, what did it look like as far as like, did you enjoy school? Was it just hanging out with friends? What are we looking at that time?
I enjoyed school as far as like the social aspect of it. I liked hanging out. I liked meeting new people, but I was also very not. I wasn't good at like being in social settings. Mm-hmm. I liked being goofy, so I was like a class clown a lot of the time. I liked being very active, so anytime we did like gym or we were out in recess and everything like that, I loved the monkey bars and all
I'm with you on that.
Stuff. Yeah, so it was way before Ninja Warrior. Mm-hmm. So it was all this stuff of trying to run as fast as I could, jump over this, jump off of that.
Yeah.
All these scrapes and bruises and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. What was that, a group of friends, or that's something you just went off on your own and did, or what were you looking at?
I was one of those like nomads.
Okay.
As far like I hung out with everybody.
Yeah.
Whoever was the quote unquote loser kid, I would talk to them and talk to popular kids, but I felt like I was kind of like human camouflage as far as like if I went to like my high school reunion, I'm pretty sure nobody would remember who I was.
Yeah, I feel like so my high school reunion just happened. Maybe it's been like 2 years ago. I'm like, oh man, I didn't get invited, but it was on Facebook. I'm never on Facebook, so like that's on me.
yeah. But at the same time, it's like with school, you kind of really. I remember a lot of my school experience. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a lot of me just kind of like laying low a lot of the times. I didn't do any kind of like chess club or football team or anything like that. I really just kind of like waved through school.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that was something at like an early age? Is that something that happened, or when did that start happening for you?
Well, I'm putting it all together now, which is usually how that works.
Yep.
But I feel like I was undiagnosed with ADHD, and I think they labeled it as just LD, learning disability, but they didn't really like narrow it down to ADHD.
Okay.
And when I was doing school, there were certain parts where I would really focus on, and other parts where I could care less about.
Absolutely.
I did not care about.
Yeah.
Like I remember being like good at math, but then I would get bored with it because it's just like it's like completing a puzzle you already know how to do.
Right.
So you don't think like when you're driving home from work, you don't think anything of it. Sometimes you could just text on your phone. You shouldn't do that, but you could text on your phone and look up. You're like, oh, I'm already home. So it's just one of those things where I I thought I was just bad at school.
Right.
Like nobody really paid attention to it. And ADHD, like around when I was a kid, just wasn't a thing. It was just, I think it was kind of out there, but not really a thing that people, now everybody jumps on it. Everybody's got ADHD nowadays.
Yeah. No, they caught it pretty early for me, got me pretty medicated. And then like once I didn't go to high school anymore, I was like, I don't feel great on it. Like I got a lot of stuff done, but didn't have much of a personality.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like the sacrifice that the parents are making for kids. They're like, look, we just want him to stop bouncing off of walls. Right. If he turns into a zombie, so be it. But I can only hear a piano being banged down for so long before I'm going to throw any kind of medication in.
And I feel like, especially for boys, if you have a lot of tools in your toolbox instead of the medication, such as, hey, they're going to need to go run, or they learn a completely different way, or they need to teach you and they'll learn. And it's very, like you said, you can hyper focus on something, but once it's boring for you, like you don't need it anymore. Like for me, if I was focused in class, I'd learn everything in class and homework. I would never do my homework because I'm like, I did it once. I got it. Yeah. Like, we're good here.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like, homework is a crazy concept, too. It's just like you spent 8 hours here learning everything you don't really want to learn, but you're here. So take a couple hours not here at the comfort of your home where video games are, TV is, snacks, and everything else that you want to do. You need to not do it and then do your homework for a couple hours.
Well, and like the goal of our school system is not to learn. It's to be able to take the test. So my best example was for spelling bees. We'd have a test every week. So like Thursday or whatever, I'd start with my mom. Whatever word I got wrong first, like out of the 10, I'd have to write those ones down. Then we'd do it again until I had it 100%. I'd crush that spelling test like the next day or whatever it was. Then at the end of the month, when it was all the words, terrible, trash. I forgot it all.
Well, that's that hyperfixation thing, because you're like, all right, I can do this. I did it. But you're not retaining anything. See, I think that's the interesting thing about me is when I started teaching like martial arts and stuff, I taught very early on. I was like, I joined when I was 19, so probably like when I was like 20 or 21, my instructor had me teaching like kids class. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes, and the way he would do it is if you ranked up, let's say like you're a yellow belt, you would help out the white belts because you just got those moves down. And now you're learning your yellow belt stuff, but you're going to be paired with a white belt because, you know, to keep it fresh in your head, but it'll also help you learn your new things. So for that kind of like mentality that I've always been trained with, I apply it to everything now.
I'm going to go check to make sure I hit start on that.
Go for it.
Keep going.
But when the way he taught, that's exactly how I like approach everything. That's how I teach other people. And I make it a point to like make sure that it's palatable for people. Right. Because I had like this, it could have been an inconvenience, but I saw it as like a teaching experience where I had like, I don't know, a few different instructors. One would teach you the same move this way. The other one likes it this way. This one's more like that. Yeah. And instead of just being like, so-and-so taught me this way, but so-and-so taught me this way. Well, all right, don't do it this way. I just learned all the ways. All right, you're teaching me. I'm doing it this way. And what that taught me later on was, you're a student that can't do it this way. So how about method number 2 works for you? Right. So that's how I kind of like learned how to like adapt to teaching people. And I pride myself off of being able to like read how somebody learns. Right. And then give them a proper way to learn.
Well, and that's the thing, like the hierarchy of learning, like you can take a test and it showed that you memorized something. Yeah. But to talk to somebody about it and to put it into practice, you really have to understand it. And like when I read a book, I feel like I've learned all this information. Then I go to talk about the book and then someone asks me a question. I'm like, well, you know, that's a good question. I don't really remember what he said about that.
I've always gotten like that was a really good book. Remember what happened in like chapter 4? That was insane. I'm like, totally. That was crazy how that person did that thing to that other person. And then they realized that. Yeah. And then it just never stuck in my head unless it's like a really good book. Yeah. I think that's like the real marker. I feel like any book is the number 1 seller. I think they just say that. Because
you have to get a certain amount of book sales in like a month or the first 2 weeks or whatever it is, but you can just buy your own book. Like that's what I think. That's what I never trust anybody on that. So you can. I was on. I don't know if it was a Clubhouse thing. That's where it was like Voices before Twitter had it or X had it, and they're like, hey, if you want to buy like a pallet of books for $1,200, you'll get like a 30-minute call with me. If you want to buy 50 books, you'll get like a voice mess. Like they just had like different tiers of stuff for you buying just a ridiculous amount of books.
It sounds a lot like the Girl Scouts. You know what I mean?
Yep. And like that would get you to New York bestseller, whatever it is, to get that emblem or whatnot. But yeah, as far as the learning, how you were labeled with learning disabilities, was that approach to you in elementary school? Was that middle school? Like when were you taught to it? Okay.
Elementary for sure. I remember doing this test with my counselor that I had.
Yeah.
And it was all these questions and nothing I ever really encountered before. And I do remember this specifically. I could not really focus because the counselor, whenever she took a sip from her water bottle, I can hear her gulp every time. And she sipped from that thing quite a bit. And I just remember, like, you know how like when you really think about something, you're like, oh yeah, I do get distracted like pretty consistently with the weirdest things.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was like, all right, it's telling me something about cubes, if the cubes fit in that. And I'm just like, okay, that's
over.
Weird swallow.
It's over. I lost
And then
it.
I was like, I forgot I had it was 3 cubes that fit in the. And I'm just like, and it's never that loud, but it's just when you focus on it, it's just it's all I can think about.
How are you? This will be funny, but how are you with people chewing?
You know, I don't mind it.
Okay.
But my fiance and my daughter have the lip smacking thing. It never bothered me before, but I think just something about sitting around it for so long, eventually it hooked onto that ADHD nerve.
Yeah.
So I'll just be enjoying my thing and I'm just like, oh God. I was like, keep your mouth closed a little bit. And that's the thing though. It's crazy too. I don't know how they do it, but their mouth is closed and I can still hear them chew. I'm like, what? That's got to be medical. You got to get that checked out.
I can say, because I know my wife won't listen to this episode. But sometimes when she chews, I'm just like, I look over and I'm like, you don't hear that? Like what?
Oh, they don't.
No. And like 100, that's why I ask. It's like, it's just something we pick up on.
Something just hooked into me. Like I usually don't care about people's chewing, but I think being around them for as long as I have now, I'm just like, I'm going to eat in my room. But it like I said, like understanding your ADHD kind of helps out in certain ways. And it helps you out with ways where somebody's like, do you think you could do that? I'm like, absolutely not. Because I didn't even hear what you said in the beginning. You know,
I have this long monotonous problem for you to handle for me. Can you do it? No.
I had this job as a machinist apprentice.
Okay.
And
that's dangerous for a person like you.
But that's the thing. I was super interested in it, so I was paying attention a lot.
Perfect.
But when you have like a few different people tell you different things, I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm looking at them in the eyes, smiling, like, yeah, okay, cool. Didn't remember anything they said.
Yeah.
Like, what I like to do is this, that, and the y-axis and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, totally cool. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go to what I remember. And, you know, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. What were you doing? Parts? Like, what kind of things were you doing?
So what I would do is I would square up blocks.
Okay.
So I'd get different types of, like, metal, different, like, hardness. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I would make sure they're as square as possible.
Okay.
And then I would hand them off to another department, whether it be like a CNC or like the milling machines or water jet, because they had a water jet as well. I would send it to them, and then they would drill the holes, cut the pieces, cut angles in it, and basically make either, because it was a tool and die shop.
Okay.
So they did some work for like Weber Grill and stuff like that. So I really liked it, and I wanted to do the schooling for it, but unfortunately I got laid off.
Yeah.
And it kind of like led me to what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Which is, you know, it's kind of one of those.
We'll get into. Sorry, I jumped ahead. I jumped ahead. So when they tell you that do they put you in different classes? Like, what do they tell you? What's the specifics?
I had like a study hall. I remember that.
Yeah.
I had a study hall, and it was to work on homework that I already did. That was another thing. If I had free time in the class, I would just do my homework. Yeah.
Crush it.
Because my ADHD was like, all right, I want to go play video games after school.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this homework. Mm-hmm. So I would just do the homework while the teacher's talking. And then that in turn, I'd be asked a question by the teacher, but I wasn't paying attention. And, so it was just one of those things where it was defeating only because nobody understood that I was trying to do this and that.
Yeah.
It was just like, you're not doing it right.
Right. Well, and like I would go home and then 2 hours of me just sitting in front of the paper, like it's not getting done at 10 minutes at school.
Not when there's a ham sandwich in the fridge waiting for you.
Did you start playing sports in middle school or high school? When did you start playing sports?
I think middle school. I played baseball. My parents asked me if I wanted to, and I did. And the only thing is, like, they're like, it doesn't matter if you don't like it, because I didn't know anything about baseball. But
that was the one you just picked?
I just picked it, and so I didn't.
That's the worst.
It was, because I didn't know anything about baseball. I didn't know how many strikes there were. I didn't know how many. I didn't know what was out of bounds. I didn't know what was a foul. I didn't know anything.
That's fantastic.
This poor coach had to try to keep my attention long enough to tell me what shortstop was and all this other stuff. And I remember my glorious moment of I hit a ball, I got to first plate. And then I watched this kid hit a ball super high. I ran to first. I was like, sweet. They still haven't got the ball yet, or they haven't thrown it over here yet. I'm going to go to third. Yeah. And then I went all the way to home. And then I was like, oh, hell yeah. I just got to home. I just made basically, I scored a point for this whole team. They're going to carry me off the field. And then my coach comes up to me, entirely too irate in hindsight. And he goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, I scored, didn't I? He goes, no, you didn't. And I'm like, but I thought he hit the ball over there. And he goes, you're out. I was like, oh, that's what that means? He goes, yes, it is. I was just like, all right. Like, even me being in the 6th grade, I was like, all right, guy. Like, it's a little too aggressive for 6th grade, baseball. And it did kind of like ruin the rest of it for me, because I was like, oh, well, I didn't know. Right. And I remember.
Wait, so did you get out because someone tagged you?
So what happened was, when the kid hit the ball, it was a fly ball, and somebody caught it.
Third out.
So I was just out.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh, yeah. We did not go over that in practice. I'm not taking responsibility for that. He didn't tell me. He didn't tell me.
For sure.
I do remember telling the coach. He's like, do you know anything about baseball? I said, I know nothing about baseball. And he goes, great. And then just kind of puts me in the outfield.
He probably didn't believe you when you said nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he thought I was just being like modest or something. But I was like, no, I for real don't know anything about it.
So did your parents come watch? Did they try to help you out afterwards? Or?
They didn't help me out afterwards. They did watch. They encouraged me when I hit the ball, and I got all the parent things. Yeah. But my parents don't know nothing about baseball, so you know what I mean. They still don't. And it was just funny because it was just my mom trying to get me to be active, and she, wanted to help out with the interest. That was the first and last time I ever played baseball. Yeah. I did track for I think 2 weeks, and when I did that, I don't know what I was thinking. I just wanted to be a part of the jocks, I think. Yeah. And when I did the 2 weeks of my track experience, I was like, this all we're doing is running. I was like, this is not, because the ADHD, you know what I mean?
This ain't me.
I'm like, so I'm just supposed to run a little faster each time. Yeah. And again, with that hyperfixation, I was super annoyed by this one kid. Mm-hmm. He was way too into running. He was like, woo, clapping his hands. All right, everybody, 3 more laps and blah, blah, blah. And in your head, you're kind of like, just shut up, dude. We're here running. We're running. Calm down. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I tried it. I didn't like it. I'm definitely more about that. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It's fine. But then after high school and I got a job, I went back to...
So when you're graduating high school... Did you have a goal for academics? Did you want to go to college, or what were you thinking while you were graduating?
So while I was graduating, I was like, finally, we're done with this malarkey. But I went into college to get my. I was very minimalist. I was like, because at the time, all you needed was your associates. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm just gonna get my associates in business. Yeah, and once I started getting close to that, you hear word that, well, you're going to need your bachelor's. I'm like, I didn't even like getting my associates, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it kind of made me fall out of it. And then I started looking at like, well, I like to work with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting a job with my parents at a factory that made packaging for computer parts.
Okay.
So I just started off as like a machine operator.
Yeah.
And, it was fine. It was money. And then that actually led me to martial arts because I'm like, well, now that I have my own money.
Yeah.
Because my mom and dad never wanted me to do martial arts.
Gotcha.
Because I had a bit of an anger issue when I was a teenager.
Okay, wait, let's go to that. What is that? What does a bit of an anger issue look like?
So, it's in hindsight, like my parents did the best they could as far as like trying to handle kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no like underlying like animosity towards my parents. Like I'm not at that. But there was like unchecked emotions that we didn't know how to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know how to talk to one another. We were kind of annoyed with, one another as siblings. Didn't feel comfortable talking to parents. Not in like that they wouldn't understand. It was more like we just don't talk about things.
Right.
And then it was through having issues with my brothers and then kind of like not being able to be confrontational to them.
Okay.
And all that kind of stuff. I specifically remember the first fight. I started getting into fights when I was like, I want to say probably about like 16.
Okay.
And it was only because these kids started like kind of giving me a hard time. And I was super annoyed. And this one kid threw a binder and it hit me like right in my lip, like my nose and teeth area. And I had the hesitation because I've never hit my brothers.
Okay.
I've never fought them or anything like that. And I had the split second hesitation of like, well, I can't fight back. And then I had the immediate realization of like, you're not my brother. So I just started like fighting people. Yeah. And I would fight like bullies or people who would look at me wrong eventually. Eventually it was just like out of hand as far as like
so
just fighting people.
Was this something you're like, oh, like what was going through your head? You're like hoping to get in a fight that day, or like what was going on for you?
So in the beginning it started off as kind of like letting off steam.
Right.
Because like my anger was just so unchecked that I was like, I'll just fight this kid that also wants to fight.
Right.
And
are we putting together any combinations, or what's our fighting look like?
So I played a lot of video games, so I just did a lot of Tekken moves. I tried to do a Street Fighter kick once. That didn't work out. So, it was one of those things where I kind of had like a natural inclination to fighting.
Okay.
And I did boxing for a little bit, so that's kind of where, and I really put my all in like training.
Yeah.
So I remember there was like these wannabe kids that they said that they were part of some gang that was around. I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
So 3 of them tried to jump me.
Yeah.
And I had experience fighting, so I ended up just kicking the shit out of all of them,
right.
all 3 of them. And when I did that, I didn't have, it was weird. I had like a good, you guys learned your lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And then at a certain point, I want to say it was about from 16 to about like 18. I was like, all right, I can go to jail for this stuff now.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I ended up starting just like anybody who started to look at me wrong, I would start something. And then a lot of times, like I didn't realize I was being a bully too, because somebody was just talking smack, and I'd be like, oh yeah, well why don't we meet up after school? And it's like, all right, dude, I'm not trying to fight you. I'm like, all right, well then.
Yeah.
But it was weird because I wasn't a full on bully, because I would be like, yeah, you want to fight? And then they're like, no, dude, I was just talking a little bit of shit. And I'm just like, yeah, well, don't. Because, and then I had like a realization. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of being a little bit of an asshole right now.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where.
Sorry, I just see like you now saying that to like a kid, not like you as a
person. Oh, trust me, I do that all the time. But it was funny because like I kind of had like that realization of like when a kid would be like, no, I'm not trying to fight. I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of being mean right now. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit of like, I think I did like a year of being a pacifist. Yeah. I think I like read like a pamphlet about Mahatma Gandhi or something like that. And then I was just like, I just won't fight anybody. But then I quickly realized that the thing about being a pacifist is that you don't fight nobody, but it doesn't deter anybody from fighting you.
Yeah.
So
when you were fighting someone, did you always know that you were going to win? Did you usually win?
I didn't care.
Didn't care.
Yeah, I got my ass kicked a few times.
Really?
Because I just, bigger kids, more athletic kids.
What does that even look like? Because like I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, don't think I've ever like gotten to like a brawl with anybody before. But how does somebody stop? Does someone always had to jump in, or what does a fight look like?
I remember there was always like a mutual thing.
Okay.
If some kid like hit the ground and it doesn't look like it looks like they're done fighting. You kind of just stopped. Mm-hmm. It was more towards like when I was getting to be like 18 that people would be a little bit more ruthless.
Yeah.
I think it's just the hormones, to be honest. I know it's like an old man thing to say. Yeah. But hormones definitely did play like a hand in it, because I remember this one kid tripped me and he started kicking me like hard on the ground.
Yeah.
And I remember I got up and we started brawling, and I remember pushing his face into the locker, and I was getting ready to like punch him. I wanted to punch his head into the locker.
Yeah.
Now that's a violent thought.
Yeah.
But I had like this little Jiminy Cricket in my head, like, yo, dude, calm down a little bit. And I hesitated, and then he ended up just like punching me super hard in the nose and cracked my nose, and we fought a little bit. And then I think mutual friends of ours, because I didn't know he was friends with my friend. Right. And just one of those things where it got out of hand. We were heated. Mm-hmm. And then I remember wanting to fight still. I felt like when I look back on it, it was definitely like unhinged in a way where it's just like something is unchecked.
Right.
Not that I was like a psychopath or anything. It was just like nobody taught me how to like handle anger. Mm-hmm. And I remember my instructor, my master, he said something very important to me, and it always stuck with me. He goes, you know these things. He goes, when people think about like kids at like a young age, and when they're saying like this, oh, I have a boyfriend at school, and they're like, I don't know, 12.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I love him. And then parents usually go, you don't know what love is. That's not true. Because kids know what love is. When they're born, they know that they love their parents.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't know how to handle, they don't know the absence of love once it's gone.
Okay.
So that's the thing that kind of like really stuck with me, is just like, it's not that I don't know how to be peaceful. Mm-hmm. It's just I don't know how to handle my anger.
Gotcha.
So, and I realized that like when I was in my teenage years. So I was just like, man, I can't be like this, and I can't just keep going around like fighting people just because they're looking at me funny.
Right. Yeah. Where do you think the anger was coming from? Did you just like wake up angry? Were you like frustrated about something?
I think it was an accumulation.
Okay.
Like these little things, you stub your toe, you got to pay bills, and well, not really as a teenager, but
at some point I want to pay taxes.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows from here on out. But I think it's like from not being very social at school, and not really feeling accepted in school. Because like I said, I just kind of bounced around. I talked to every kind of kid. Yeah. The kids that were definitely going to amount to nothing, to the kids who were going to be lawyers and doctors and stuff like that. I just never felt like I could relate to any kid. Yeah. I had like a couple of friends, and then eventually they kind of like fell off. And the two best friends that I have now, they're like brothers to me. Mm-hmm. I met them when I was like 16. Yeah. They kind of had an idea of how many fights I've been in, but they've never really known like how crazy I was, basically. But it was like a starting point of like I felt like I belonged hanging out with them. Right. And then once I started doing martial arts, like once I got that job, my instructor, his name is Eddie, Master Eddie Perez, shout out. He had a great reading of people. He was he has an extensive history of like military and police background. I forget what he was before, like when I started, but towards the end of his career, he was the commander for Batavia. Okay. So he had like a militant but like stoic presence about like teaching. Mm-hmm. And so did the other instructors, like Mr. Gellner, Mr. Groutman, like all of them. And when they taught you something, they really knew the ins and outs of how you're supposed to approach these things, why it works, all the stuff that really appeals to like the ADHD part of my brain. Because when you focus on something, you're like, oh, this is cool.
Right.
This is an awesome glass. Why is it like this? Do they blow the glass or do they put it in a machine?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? Do they do this or that? And it really just honed in on my ADHD because they would say, this is this technique. And because it does that, and you can also do this. It was endless for me to like know all the combinations. Right. And for some reason, it was just perfect for me. It was just perfect to not have like a perfect technique.
Yeah.
And it was perfect for me to not have an end to my learning of martial arts. And it really showed me what I was made of. It showed me that I wasn't useless, first of all, because I'm actually pretty good at martial arts.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing that I think I was angry about. I think I was angry that I wasn't as smart as other kids.
Okay.
And I think I was angry that I wasn't good enough for like society or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I have those words now, but I didn't have them back then. And I don't even know if I could have spelled society back then. But now I can kind of see where a lot of my anger came from not understanding myself.
Okay.
So once I started kind of understanding myself as far as martial arts, I knew I had extreme determination. I had a super high pain tolerance, apparently.
Yeah.
I've got a laundry list of injuries. I've dislocated both shoulders a few times. I've dislocated this pinky not too long ago. I've bruised my spine. I've hurt ligaments. I've done all kinds of things. Broken my nose, broken ribs, all kinds of things. But what it taught me was that I have it in me. Like I have it in me to persist and keep going and not let things stop me. And that's where I really had like a turnaround, because when I started doing martial arts, I still, I was going to bars and stuff like that. And then I would still get into fights with people. But what happened was, I had started teaching the kids class.
Okay.
And then the kids they looked up to me.
Yeah.
And they really like saw me as a role model. And I've never been a role model for anybody. I have a younger brother and, he's my younger brother. He's not really like looked up to me, at least during that time.
Right.
I didn't know what was, going on through his head or anything. But it was like when they're kids and they look at you like a superhero and, Mr. Mark can do this. Mr. Mark is awesome. And, they give, like, I've never gotten a gift from quote unquote strangers who appreciated me for being me. So when they came into my life and they were very welcoming and all that kind of stuff, it really proved me wrong as far as like not belonging to society or not being like a worthy person or good enough.
For sure.
So it really is kind of like a movie type situation where I just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And then once I really got into that like groove of that, I started feeling bad that I would be fighting people outside the gym.
Right.
And then
when you started fighting people outside the gym while knowing jiu-jitsu, like what did those fights turn into?
So I didn't learn jiu-jitsu until I want to say 8 years ago.
What were you learning at 19?
So at 19, I was learning Junsai Kwan Hapkido and Guazabara machete fighting.
Okay.
So obviously I didn't fight nobody with a machete. You know what I mean? But I've had situations where I would fight people and I would at a certain point, you got to realize that you're putting yourself in a bad situation.
Okay.
And I have. Yeah. I put myself in a situation. I got stories for days.
Hey, let's hear a couple.
I remember when I first started training and I was like maybe 20 years old. So I had like good 2 years of training. And it was tough training too. I remember I went to a college party, and then they were hanging out with friends and everything like that. And then my buddy's girlfriend's friend, she was kind of getting harassed by this guy, and me,
which is so strange. If you're, I still got to work on it, but work on understanding it. If you're harassing a chick, is that because you're still trying to get with her, or you're just frustrated that she said no?
Here's my interesting. I got a theory about that.
Okay.
I feel like the guys are like, man, does that ever work? I feel like it worked once.
Gotcha.
And they're like, I'm running with that forever.
Okay.
I'll say an inappropriate joke in it, and I just so happen to have got with this chick.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to be that person forever.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's an identity that people...
Yeah.
Because I also used to be a bouncer and a security guard for like...
Okay.
So that's what I've noticed. Yeah, I've noticed that, that skeezy person that's just like, oh,
You have real-time data.
Yeah, it's like, are those pants half off? Like, they'll be 100% off if we go... Like, that worked for him at one point.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
wild.
I just feel like that's what happened because, like, there's just no way that you have that lack of self-awareness where you're like, I'm being a scumbag right now. You know what I mean? I truly feel that's what it was. So when this guy was like harassing her, I just said something. I was like, hey, dude, like, I'm very like big picture. I'm just like, hey, man, she just doesn't want to talk to you. And I'm of the mindset of like, girls don't want to talk to me sometimes too. Like at that time, I'm like, not every girl's gonna like me. Not every guy's gonna want to be friends with me. It's fine. But this guy had an ego, and it took a blow from a guy to come up and have to pull a female away from him. So I didn't know that this was a fraternity party. Mm-hmm. So him and his quote unquote brothers, like it was something out of like he whistled or he said yo or caw or something, and got everybody. Like 4 other guys came, so it was me versus 5 guys. And I'd like to tell you that it was a super awesome kung fu. Yeah. I was untouchable, and I did this. I got punched and kicked, and I was bloodied and beaten. But because of the training that I had, and we went pretty like realistic as far as like the training that we did. We would build up going slow, then fast, and then if you got hit, oh well, you didn't do it fast enough. So when one guy's like grabbing me here, I'm getting punched there, and then I remember specifically who.
So when you see it, so it's you, is it like 5 guys around you? Are they all in front of you? And what's going through your head when this is like about to go off?
So I've always had this from the very moment I first started like fighting people. I was like, I'm gonna tear through everybody. Okay. And there's like an absence of, oh man, I might get hurt. Oh, like what if I end up in the hospital? I have no thought of that at all. Yeah. And I'm just, it's the weirdest thing to explain because I remember, you're not the first person I've asked me that. There's just like a readiness within me that's just like, I don't know, some sort of warrior mentality of like, I might die tonight, but I'm going to take out a few of you guys. Yeah. And it's never that serious, but I just have that in my brain. Yeah. And I think that's like
where you're going.
Yeah. I think that's a lot for like a lot of people in martial arts. They have this thing in their brain where they're just like, because when you start doing jiu-jitsu, and we'll get more into that, like when you get a choke on somebody, people fight like they're going to die and then they tap. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like you do feel that fight at a certain point. So when I'm in this crowded room and these 5 guys are rushing me, it wasn't a one at a time type deal. They immediately swarmed on me, kicking me, punching me. And I managed to get to a wall, so I was cornered into a wall. And I remember this one guy had my shirt and he was pushing me. And I remember grabbing his hand. And the thing about Hapkido, it's all joint locks, mostly wrists, elbows, and all that stuff. So I grabbed his wrist, cranked on it. He let go. And then one guy that was holding me by the waist, I think I kneed him a few times in the ribs and then the face. Yeah. And then the 3 guys that I was going against, they were still like on me. I remember one eye was kind of shut because I got hit pretty hard in the eye. So I grabbed a finger and twisted at some point, and then it's down to the last 2 guys, and I think I just broke one dude's nose and just went one-on-one with this last guy. And we just learned how to do like a takedown, like a suplex. Okay. And it wasn't even taught by the instructors. We were just messing around as students because we had a crash pad. We're like, why not? And I think it was like called a German suplex too. And I was like, oh, this is going to be sick. I'm going to pick this dude up and I'm going to German suplex him into the coffee table. So I do that. And, you think it would be like the movies. Yeah. None of this was like the movies. I'm letting anybody know. It's never going to be like the movies.
Oh, no.
I pick him up and I suplex him on this.
Yeah.
We both hit this solid, like this is the most solid table I've ever felt in my entire life. It didn't budge at all. I might as well have done it on concrete. So not only did I knock the wind out of him more than me, but we both got injured. And then somebody called the cops, and then I just ended up running. And keep in mind, like, I think this is like somewhere in NIU. And, you know, at the time I lived here. I actually don't live I used to not live too far from here. And I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get home. Yeah. I was like, is there taxis? I don't know how. I can't hitchhike. I got one eye swollen shut,
not gonna look good,
bloody, all this kind of stuff. Like a cop will pick me up and ask what happened. But luckily my buddies left because I remember letting them know too. I was like, hey, like, just take girls, get out of here. I thought they left, but they were just hanging out to see that what happened. But once they started seeing that everybody's leaving and running, there was definitely some underage drinking going on in there. And I was walking and he pulls up and he goes like, what the hell happened?
You can swear.
Okay. I'm just making sure. He's like, what the fuck happened, dude? And I just fought and blah, blah, blah. He started talking tough. Like, you should let me know. And I was like, you weren't going to do shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know how you know.
I had you.
He's like, you should have told me, bro. I would have. You know, here's how you, and this is, I've met so many people like this. This is how you know that they weren't going to do anything and they weren't going to fight. When they say sound effects and when they tell you exactly what they're going to do and they use be like, man, you should have told me. I would have been like, pow, and bam, I would have been like, you know what I mean? And if they did that, you know they've never been in a fight. And that they don't know how to fight.
I'm gonna clip that, and I have like 5 people that do that. So I'm gonna send it to
clip it all day. I'm telling you, it's just
amazing.
I've met so many people that don't know how to fight, and they've probably never been in a fight. Yeah. And if they have been, they lost. Right. That they're just like, yo, I was bat bat, and I'm bat bat bat, I'm on a rat a tat, and all this kind of onomatopoeias and stuff. So I get in there. It was funny. So the girl that was being harassed, I thought, you know, at least she'd be like, well, that was nice of you, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. She started berating me. Why would you do that? I didn't need your help. Now we got to blah, 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 and this. And I told my buddy, I was like, yo, stop the car. And he stopped. I was like, you can walk home if you want to walk. Because like I said, I was still angry and stuff. I was like, you can walk home if you want because I'm not about to hear this the whole time. So she was immediately quiet. And I was like, all right, let's go home. I remember keeping ice on my eye for entirely too long. Yeah. You know, my nose was busted. Luckily, I didn't have like that cut on the nose. Okay. I just blow my nose and blood was coming out and all that kind of stuff. It was easy to hide like bruises. This is the thing though. My parents don't know all the bruises I had like on my body. Luckily, I knew how to block a lot. Yeah. So my face got hit every once in a great while. But I think the reason why my face was so good was because I didn't allow people to hit my face as much. Okay. And I knew a little bit more than other people. I have all kinds of stories like that. When I was a bouncer, for some place in Aurora. So
is bouncing like 99% of the time just like relax, buddy, and then like sometimes it happens. Like I don't really go to bars, so I don't know what happens.
Nobody needs to. Nobody needs to go to bars.
I was a bouncer once in downtown St. Charles.
Oh, me too.
Whatever, not Callahan, whatever the Irish pub was. But so I was on the rugby team. They're like, hey, can we get like a bouncer? And so I was there for New Year's Eve.
It's a quick $50.
Yeah. I did absolutely nothing. And then I looked at some cards and I was like, this is no chance. And they just like would like walk away, take the card. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But like, what was a majority of your job like when you were bouncing?
So that depends on where we worked. I remember when I worked in Aurora, I remember I had to stop this one guy because he just started walking in without like telling me.
He was just going.
And I was like, whoa. He goes, ask your partner, because I worked with somebody for some guy. He goes, why don't you ask him? And then he immediately came over. He's like, oh, no, this is the owner of the place. I was like, well, how about he say, hey, I'm the owner of this place? And I was like, and on top of that, how am I supposed to know that he's the owner of this place? He looked just like a regular guy.
So for people that don't know, Aurora
Mm-hmm.
I think still is the second biggest city in Illinois outside of Chicago.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's something like that. And there's parts of Aurora. I'm not bagging on Aurora, but there's parts of Aurora where it gets a little rowdy. There's people with no good intentions happening.
I mean, not having been in the drug trade myself, knowing a fair amount of cops, it's just where a lot of the drugs come through. So like that's just, it doesn't help as far as crime. I know they've cracked down on a lot, but like you're gonna get into Chicago somewhere, you're gonna come through Aurora, or you're leaving Chicago, like whatever it is. That's just where a lot of drugs went, and then crime follows that.
There was a few like that. I remember there was a fight that happened between two gang members, and I got cracked in the head with a beer bottle.
So that's like, I've always, the reason why I haven't fought, I don't know shit about fighting. But also I'd always be super worried that someone would have a knife on them, someone would have a gun on them. Like I would accidentally like trip on my way to the fight and like fall on something. Like I feel like,
or a friend just sucker punches you.
Yeah.
That's what happened with me with the beer bottle.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just handling a situation, and then bam. Luckily, I'm a lot tougher than most people, and I have a high pain tolerance, like I've said before. I just looked at him, and he went to swing again. I locked up his arm. I used
it. Didn't break on you?
No. That's the thing.
I feel like that's gotta hurt.
It hurt so bad. I had a headache for at least like 3 days.
Oh my god.
I remember. That's why I say nothing is like the movies where you get hit.
It shatters on you.
It shatters on you. Then if it does shatter on you, you're definitely getting cut. So it was a good thing that it didn't shatter. But I remember the tink.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, and it was just, it was funny because, face tat, neck tats, shaved head, and baggy clothes, but tiny. So when I say baggy clothes, like for me, baggy clothes is I would have to wear like a 4XL.
Okay.
For this guy, he was probably wearing like a slim fit large, and it was baggy on him. So that was probably the reason why it didn't break on me.
Right.
It still hurt.
Yeah.
And I grabbed him, locked up his arm, and there's 2 sets of doors. So I used his face to open up both doors.
Yeah, perfect.
Got him out, went back in, and then I got clipped by like a chair because somebody was waving a chair around. Got that guy, and then everything settled down because the cops were like right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, man, I can't do that. I can't be part of this. That kid could have just stabbed me in the neck for all that.
Absolutely.
And that was another thing. I had, how many like knives I had? Like, hey, you can't have that in here. You can't have that in here.
They're just showing you that they have knives?
They just have them on their sides. They had like a pocket knife, and you could see the clip. And I'm just like, you got to leave that in your car. And then some people would just walk to their car and then just walk right back. And then I'd be like, you still have your knife on you. Like I'm not that lazy. Because like it's my life. Like
right.
You don't know how crazy people are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody will stab you. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I think me with the life that I've had, if you're thinking like, well, nobody's gonna jump me. I've been jumped before. I didn't think that. And I went to Batavia too.
Yeah.
So it was.
What year did you graduate?
2010.
Do you know me?
I might.
I graduated in 2009.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Alexander. Heisman. I was fat.
I might know
and
you.
Short. I played tennis.
But that was the thing, though. That's the thing. I might have known you, and I might have talked to you. But it's such a like non-rememberable moment in your life that you probably
well now I'm trying to figure out because at lunch I sat with either we'll just say some of the druggies or some of the athletes.
So we might have crossed paths.
Who'd you hang out with? This is hilarious.
I remember I sat mostly with like the little bit of the degenerate kids. I would say like I don't know if you know who. I don't know if we can say names if that's a whole thing. Ricardo Cortez.
Was he
Jordan Ship. Do you remember that name?
Is that your grade or my grade?
That's my grade.
Who am I trying? Do you remember the guy that's now a bodybuilder, absolutely jacked? I think he was your grade. Oh, man. No, I'm awful with names. Good with faces.
He's a bodybuilder now. I don't think... I don't have a lot of friends from back in high school. I don't have anybody.
I'm trying to think of people from that year. We'll figure it out.
We'll probably figure something out. We probably have prospects. That's what I'm saying. We probably had a conversation at one point, and you were just all like, "That was a cool conversation," and then it just faded into nothing. You know what I mean? But back to the story. When you're in that like mentality of like this can't happen to you, and it does happen to you, it does kind of change your perspective of life.
What was the situation of you getting jumped?
So when I got jumped, it was just like I said, it was just the wannabe kids that wanted. I think I heard around like way later after it was like after high school that they were trying to get into the gang.
Okay.
So they needed to like jump me, or I don't know if it was true.
Yeah.
Or if they just were just trying to be tough or something like that. It heavily felt like in hindsight, it felt like they were just trying to be tough and pick on a kid.
So how does that, like, after you get into a fight with somebody, are your friends saying like, "Hey man, like, good fight"? You're like, "Good." Like, what does the conversation look like after a fight? I have no idea.
Sometimes it's just like they're hyped up, like, "Yeah, you kicked his ass and you fucked him up, blah blah blah," and then it's nothing after that.
Yeah.
And then
now I'm trying to remember fights at school.
Oh, it happened.
I only remember 2 chicks fighting at school.
I remember this
the fight that I can remember.
I don't know if you were around for that one, but I remember like a girl threw like hot chocolate in some girl's face.
Okay.
I remember that. I remember that was wild. And then she just started like I can't remember the girl's name, but I just remember it was like 2 like the no judgment, like ghetto girls that like just started going at it and pulling hair and punching. There was one time in that little hallway. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like the photography. No, not the photography place. The graphic arts.
Okay.
It was like that little incline and that little hallway. If you go a little further, that's where I got in a fight a lot of the times.
Oh, really? Because
it was just like no teachers walked that way. The teachers that actually taught in those classes didn't even walk that way. So it was one of those things where it was just, the school was big before they got like, I remember it was like, I think 2011 is when they won state or something like that. And then they built it even bigger. Yeah,
it was in construction the whole time that I was there.
Yeah.
So whenever I go back, I'm like, where?
I thought it was bullshit, dude. I was like, God, we could have had like the state of the art everything, and we got like construction noises. Remember, I don't know if you remember, they had like the
mobile,
mobile homes, the trailers.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Yeah, I remember. I think one of the senior pranks, because I think they put stink bombs in the cracks of the doors. Yeah. So if like the teacher saw that the door was a little cracked, they would close it and it would break open the stink bombs, and it stunk up the whole trailer to the point where like
we
can't have class. You know what I mean? And I remember a lot of the stuff in school was, it's funny when you look back in like high school.
Yeah,
I haven't thought about high school until like right now. You don't know shit. Like you don't know anything, but you think you know everything.
Oh, yeah.
It sucks when like life actually hits you.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like for me, when I was going through high school, it's not like anybody else knew anything because they were all my age. It's not like we can have these like great like conversations because we're all going through the same thing.
Yeah.
We haven't taken a class on how to like mentally like observe things or journal or think about like whatever's going on. So like if I'd watch a movie and I'd see like a jock doing whatever, I'd be like, oh, like I can't go up and talk to him. And I'd see someone talking to a jock, I'm like, hey, like I think it was like Nick Fruent, like when I went in there, he's a phenomenal basketball player. And then like either I had a class with him or whatever, like, oh, he's just a regular person. Like I didn't understand that like freshman year. Like,
well, that's the thing. You don't understand a lot of things like when you're in high school.
No chance. Yeah.
It's one of those weird thoughts where you're just like, man, with all the stuff that I was doing in high school, I never did drugs, I never drank. But when I was like picking fights and then fighting in house parties and stuff, as entertainment, I'm like, that's ridiculous. That like thinking about my kid growing up. All right, have fun at so and so party,
right?
And find out that he's going to fight people at the party, and then just being around a bunch of kids who were smoking weed and drinking. Yeah, and it boggles my mind out, and I would be upset with my kid if he was like that. But like I didn't ever let my parents know.
Yeah,
and I think I did tell my mom at some point. Yeah, and not after having, like, I think maybe like a year or two ago. I told her, I was like, yeah, Mom, I was kind of just fighting kids, and but it was only because like my own like self-improvement and stuff like that, right? But it's always been one of those things where man, we didn't know anything back
Well,
back in
and
that day.
that's the toughest thing, because I know now, like, if I talk to my parents, it's phenomenal, but I thought anything that I ever did wrong, like, I couldn't talk to them about it because they'd get mad. And then, like, I would tell them something, like, they wouldn't get mad. I'm like, man, this would have been great to know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like I said, parents don't have an instruction book. You know what I mean? You don't exactly know how to handle it. You can definitely learn some things. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, I don't know. It is weird. That's kind of cliche, but like the things that have happened, I'm glad they happened, because like I'm definitely a better person now for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, humbly, I say that. I'm not the best person in the world, but at the same time, I have a lot of patience with people. Like, when I teach people, I teach kids, I just have the most patience with them.
Yeah.
Because a thing that I kind of say from time to time is like, you don't yell at a baby for not knowing how to walk. Like, you got to be patient, let them walk when they can walk.
Yeah.
And it just helps out with life in general. Like, career situations. I can't just be like, I want to have $100,000 right now. Like, no, well, what are you doing to do it? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you advertising? Are you? There's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah.
And like the sucky part of the hard work has already been kind of drilled out of my brain because of all the hard work I did with training. So that training helped me realize that I can definitely be persistent and have determination to do what I want to do.
What was your physical health like when you started training? Were you already ripped up from just fighting so much, or like what was your physical health?
I was a bit of a chubby kid.
Okay.
But for some reason, like 17, 18, I started doing P90X. I remember that.
Love it. Absolutely.
I started doing P90X, and
Yeah.
I actually got in pretty like decent shape.
Yeah.
And part of the reason was so I can fight a little bit longer. So it was one of those things where it's just like, like I was like, I want to get into shape, Mom. That's why I'm buying this.
Yeah.
Like, so I can fuck people up. And then I kind of just started like pursuing that. So I was about 165 pounds when I was 18. And then when I was about 21, I started like putting on muscle.
Okay.
I ate a lot, took creatine, all that kind of stuff.
Where were you getting your information at that point? Was it bodybuilding.com, magazines, or how were you learning about
all of it. I would just try things. I didn't get into much detail until I started like learning personal training and all that kind of stuff, periodization, calorie deficit, all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely much more advanced now. So now I'm at 225. I wanted to get to 200 when I was 21.
Yeah.
Just because like I felt like that was like man size.
Right.
I felt like I was too skinny. I definitely felt like I looked too sickly.
Yeah.
And then like I have a weird strength. I used to call it something different, but when I realized that I had like this strength to kind of like really like build off of it.
Yeah.
That's when I started like seeing how much muscle I could put on. I got as high as like, I think I was like 235.
Okay.
But I was very slow.
Yeah.
Didn't move very fast. So I dropped back down to 200.
Yeah.
But then this is when I was doing jiu-jitsu. When I started doing jiu-jitsu, I realized that I was too weak.
Okay.
And too easily dominated. So I was like, you know what? I think 225 is a good weight. There's some people that are heavier than me. There's some people that are slightly smaller than me. And I can get like the best of both worlds.
So when did you pick up jiu-jitsu?
So I trained for 5 years every day for I forget how many hours a day in Junsei Kwan Hapkido. So I think I got my black belt in 2015.
Okay.
2015. And then shortly after that, I wanted to do jiu-jitsu because my other instructor, Efren, he was getting into jiu-jitsu. He is, by the way, he's super fast with a knife. Because he got his black belt in Guazabara. He didn't do Hapkido. And he was so fast with a knife, the way he would move his hands and get cuts and stuff like that. We had chalk knives.
Okay. So
we had to wear all black, tight shirt. And if you got cut, you saw where you got cut. If it was either superficial or, you're dead. And I remember he cut me so fast on different things. And then fast forward after I graduate, it was literally a week after I graduated.
Yeah.
He comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Mark, you wanna spar?" I was like, "Sure." And then we get the box of chalk knives, And they have like, you know, the 6-inch ones, like
Okay.
ones that look a little menacing. And I remember I grabbed the small one. It was like that big. It was like an inch. And so he's like, oh, okay. So he grabs one of the smaller ones. And we're going at it. And from the outside looking in, they were saying like, man, we couldn't tell who was getting cuts, who was blocking. It was the closest thing to like a Kung Fu movie.
Yeah.
That was the only time it ever happened. So when that happened, we're going at it. And then I like inverting my knife. So where the knife is pointing at the bottom of your hand. So I was working on that, and I prefer that method. And then I managed to cut him 3 times, one like on the belly, on the chest, and on the shoulder. So I didn't know that he also does inverted knife training.
Okay.
So he caught me in the belly and the chest and on the shoulder as well. So it was one of those tit for tat things, and it was one of the greatest like sparring moments because we didn't have like goggles on, we didn't have like face protection.
Okay.
So we could have easily like caught somebody's eye.
Yeah.
But I cut him, then he immediately cut me back, and then time ran out. And then we shook hands and he said like, oh, it was awesome. But I worked so hard to get my hands as fast as his. Yeah. Because I'm bigger than him. He was a smaller guy. Yeah. And this is the thing about like martial arts in general. He's twice my age. And I'm twice his size. Okay. And when he started learning jujitsu, I could not get him down. Yeah. And I remember one time he did a double leg and he lifted me up. And I'm so much bigger than him that when I went over his shoulder, I almost touched the ground. And then he slammed me right back down and got on top of me, and I couldn't do anything about it. Yeah. So I don't know how much he weighed. He was like 135 maybe, something like that. Maybe a little less. And that's the moment where I was like, I gotta learn jujitsu. Okay. So that was when I was a black belt. Yeah. So when I was a black belt in that system, I was like, I want to learn jujitsu, and then that's when I started doing it. So I started training. I want to say in the off days. So I'd be teaching at Defense Training Institute, and then I would go train in jiu-jitsu. So when I was doing that, it was to like level up because I'm a second degree black belt in Hapkido. Okay. To get a third degree, I needed to know like judo moves. Gotcha. Like throws and takedowns. And that's where I was getting into jiu-jitsu anyways, and they taught throws anyways. So I just soaked everything up, and I haven't really been back. I do want to go visit every once in a while because I miss them a lot. And it was awesome to develop these techniques, and I am strong, but I like not having to use my muscle. Right. I like that because jiu-jitsu is on a it's like evolving right now. It's like my buddy Aditya, he trains in Chicago and Highwood at the Caprito gym, and he said something interesting. He said, I think that jiu-jitsu is going to get to like the kung fu level of block, push, and all that kind of stuff. And he said that, I forget how long ago, a couple of years ago. But now if you watch and keep up with like competitions, there's some interesting things happening. People using their feet to do this, and grips, different Hail Mary moves, and the techniques are really getting like even more high level. Yeah. And that's why I'm glad like I started when I did, because if I started like now, it'd be so hard. Give me a chance. But this is the thing though. Right. Teaching is also evolving too. Yeah. Like the way that I'm learning now from my coach Joey. Yeah. Or over at RMMA, I used to teach when I taught. I would focus one whole month on guard. Right. Or one whole like because it's open guard, closed guard, this guard, that guard, fish guard, octopus guard, all that kind of stuff. But I would just train on the very fundamental things for a month. Joey is so good at teaching that he teaches, all right, we're doing a guard. We're focusing only on guard. But he would teach like open guard into closed guard into half guard into attacks. Yeah. So like a chess opening, like this would happen and then kind of develop the path. And it was all for the week. That he would teach us throughout the week, and then people who are there consistently will get it. Yeah. And me being there like when I make it and kind of refreshing my brain, it's so much more like fitting to learn that way. Yeah. that I was just like, I'm definitely like staying here and learning from this guy because he teaches so well. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to think that I gotten a little better. You know what I mean? Just
so when you started, was your goal to just train as much as you could? Did you want a black belt? Did you want to compete? Like, what was going through your head when you first started?
I just love it. Okay. I just love competing. No, not competing. I love like sparring with people and kind of feeling that different feeling. I definitely want to start doing competitions because at this point, that's like the real test because I'm a purple belt now.
Okay.
So I want to kind of, casually do some competitions here and there. I stopped caring about my rank when I was a yellow belt in Hapkido.
Okay.
I just wanted to my belt and was my skill.
Gotcha.
So I would love to get a black belt, but I'm in no rush because I have like bad imposter syndrome. I really don't think I'm that good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like being easier on myself because I'm like, well, I do move really well for like a bigger guy.
Yeah.
Because Joey, that was a good compliment that Joey gave me. He was just like, I was like, oh man, you got all the big guy moves because he's a smaller gentleman and he's really fucking good. He's like, but you got the small guy moves too, implying that like I'm not just, right. I'm not fatting my way on top of somebody. You know what I mean?
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Fatting your way on.
Because a lot of the times, like if you're a heftier guy, you can just lay on somebody. And eventually, they'll get tired.
Yeah.
But when they do that to me, they can't. If a guy's bigger than me, they can try, but I know enough to move them off of me.
Yeah.
And
I got some questions for you. I got a couple of guys.
I got all kinds of answers. But that's the thing, though. It's like I really was on the path of being a true martial artist since I was 19.
Okay.
Because it was the reason why I joined was to control my anger and control myself. Mm-hmm. And through that philosophical journey of like, if you know yourself but you don't know your opponent, then you're going to lose 50% of the time. Okay. But if you know yourself and you know your opponent, like you can come out on top most of the time. Yeah. And that's like I don't know, I'm butchering it, but that was from like the Art of War. Okay. Like Sun Tzu said that. Mm-hmm. And that resonated with me because now I know myself, but now I want to know my opponents.
Gotcha.
How are people thinking, all that kind of stuff. So jiu-jitsu is perfect for that.
So how did your life change when you started doing martial arts? Like what did you start doing outside the gym that was different?
I started like being a little bit more respectful for people, not really knowing their journeys and stuff. And because like when I was being like a shitty person and fighting people, I thought of myself as karma. I'm like, oh, you're gonna be a dickhead to me. Gotcha. I'm gonna bash your face in. Yeah. Then after a while, I'm just like, well, he's probably being a dickhead because I don't know, his girlfriend left him and all that kind of stuff.
Anything.
Because that stuff was happening in my life. You know what I mean? Like anything can happen in somebody's life. So maybe they don't know how to handle it, but it's no reason to get into a fight with anybody. You know what I mean? If they're starting a physical fight with you, that's the reason to start, fighting. So, so that it's pretty simple. But like when you don't have any real guidance, growing up, it clouds your brain. Mm-hmm. So that's why, and me knowing so much now, it gives me a lot of patience for people who are ignorant. Right. You know what I mean? I kind of just like, well, I didn't know that much either. When I was there. For sure. So I always try to encourage for people to kind of know themselves. Mm-hmm. And to not be hard on themselves, because I'm super hard on myself, and the days that I don't train, I'm like, fuck, I should have just gone. Yep. I don't care if my knee's hurting, I should have just gone. Mm-hmm. But now I'm kind of in like this self-preservation thing where like, if you want to do this when you're 65, you got to take your rest days and you got to be easy on yourself. Yeah. But it's come full circle with me just wanting to help people. Like what martial arts has done for me, I want everybody to benefit from it. If they're going through a hard time, if they're struggling with going to the bars too much, if they just want to get into shape, if they just want to have like, a physical thing to be therapeutic, jiu-jitsu is definitely the route to go. I will say, jiu-jitsu is fucking hard. Yeah, it hurts for a while. Mm-hmm. You're not good at it for a while, for sure. But at the same time, like the benefits that you get from it, knowing that you can get better at this, it keeps you humble with, if you're a white belt, you're not going to get an amazing arm bar on somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe on your fellow white belt, but you guys both don't know enough to get
Right.
one another. And if you do, awesome. That's great. I like being wrong about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get an arm bar on a blue belt. You're not going to get an arm bar on a purple belt. For sure not brown and black. But the fact that they couldn't murder you 10 times.
Right.
It was only 9 times out of 10. Sweet.
Yeah.
8 times out of 10. Awesome. The bar being so low is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. You want to be able to, all right, I'm getting submitted 10 times. All right, next time it's 9. Mm-hmm. Then eventually you're surviving, and now you almost swept them. You didn't sweep them. You almost did. But now you're seeing it come into your head and click, and then you can figure these things out. You know what they're trying to do. You can feel what's going on. And that's just such a satisfying thing, especially with all the hard work that you put into it.
Yeah. Do you feel that there's a certain gravity to the situation because like they're choking you, or they're not, no one's usually purposely trying to break your bones or whatever it is, but
things happen.
I'm
not playing patty cake.
the fact that like this is something that your life is in somebody else's hands, and you more or less have like an agreement that if I tap, you're not going to choke me out.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that adds some type of more relief or more satisfaction to doing jiu-jitsu?
I think what people should focus on is we're all there to learn. Mm-hmm. No matter if don't start thinking about like, this guy's so much better than me. Yeah, he probably is. But at the same time, how does that help you? That only makes you think less of yourself. Mm-hmm. The very fact that you show up, I'm saying bare minimum, if you show up 2 times a week, that's awesome. Yeah. Because somebody's not showing up at all. Mm-hmm. And I know that's like a cliche thing to say, but with how little you can show up, that's way more than not showing up at all. Mm-hmm. When somebody, and that's where like the camaraderie comes. Yeah. I almost choke you out, and you're like, damn, that was a slick move. Awesome. Let's go at it again.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Fist pump.
Yeah. So you get fist pump for it. And I've said that all too many times where somebody chokes me and I'm just like, that was awesome. Yeah. Because it was genuinely like, it's not easy to get me. At least I'd like to think. Yeah. But it's one of those things where everybody respects it and everybody's trying to, get better and better. Yeah. Everybody's got like the same fight as far as learning jiu-jitsu. Everybody wants to get better at jiu-jitsu. Yeah. We don't want to bring in, well, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. I lost this, I lost that. You can definitely have the friends in jiu-jitsu because there's a lot of people in jiu-jitsu I talk to and I've really got a good connection with. But when you have that same camaraderie on, like, hey, isn't this hard? And you're like, yeah, it is fucking hard. But isn't it cool that we're doing this? Like, yeah, it is cool that we're doing this. And on paper, I always say this, on paper, it is fucking nuts for us to like doing jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? On paper, because I've tried to explain it to so many different people who don't understand. They're like, so is it like wrestling? Kind of. But you're trying, like, somebody tried to break my arm the other day. I'm like, okay. Like, are you okay? Oh, I'm fine. Like, it only popped a little bit, but I tapped and it was all good. It was a slick way he got me. And everybody's like, okay. It's like, I guess he's having fun. So whatever. And then, have like getting injuries. That's another thing. I always have this hand kind of taped up sometimes. And like, what happened there? I was like, just training. Yeah. And I always say just training because I don't want to disgust anybody with like, oh, somebody did a knee slice and their hip hit my pinky. Yeah. And it popped it out sideways. So I had to pop it back in. And now I'm just taping it so it doesn't slip out on its own. Yeah. Just one of those things that it's just, like I said, that's insane for me to even have that in my life. That I have just a pinky that slips out. Right. But at the same time, it's just like, it's like a weird badge of honor to know that, like, this is a tough thing that we do. Because nobody really gives you a pat on the back for doing the laundry or, walking the dog or anything.
Sometimes I ask for it.
It would help. It would definitely help. I'm throwing a hint to my fiance right now. It would definitely help. But it's one of those things where you get your own pat on the back because it's such a tough thing to do. Nobody likes doing it. Like, I mean, we all love jiu-jitsu. Right. If we could do it pain-free without hurting, all that kind of stuff, 100% everybody would be like, yeah, I would love to do that kind of jiu-jitsu. but jiu-jitsu is rough, tough.
Yeah.
But it's just so much fun. And you meet so many great people that are there for the same reason. They just want to get better.
For sure.
And no, I don't think I've ever really met many like assholes in jiu-jitsu. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that have. I think I've met only like one, but he wasn't even really in jiu-jitsu. He was just a guy that liked to say that he was in jiu-jitsu. And I haven't heard or seen anything with him. So it's just those people usually weed themselves out. Because it's hard to just be like, I worked my day shift. My kid's yelling in my ear.
Right.
My body hurts. Training starts in 20 minutes. All right, let's go. You know what I mean? To do that, it's not easy.
So, and all that has brought you to starting to do your own thing now. What does that look like?
So, what I'm doing now is I want to teach people, and I'm building my own school. I got my own little space now to do private lessons until I can build up bigger school and stuff like that. I want to teach people. My sole goal is to teach them for themselves.
Okay.
To let them know, like, hey, you can do this. I will find a way to help you understand jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So you don't fall out of it. I think what happens at some schools is that the instructors are fluent in jiu-jitsu. Now, you're fluent in English. When you're trying to teach English, how can you explain the word use? Why does it sound like that, but it's not spelled Y-O-U-S-E? You know what I mean? Because logically, when you're first learning, because like, what my daughter actually had that question. She goes, "It's uze?" I'm like, no, it's use. That's a hard one. I'm not gonna explain to her because I don't know how.
Yeah.
But she goes, "Why is it not spelled Y-O-U-S-E?" And she has a point. But it's only because I've read that word I don't know how many times.
Right.
We know what use is, how to spell it, all that kind of stuff. But how do you explain that?
Yeah.
You don't really know. As for me, I know I'm becoming fluent in jiu-jitsu, but I remember all those tips and tricks. So instead of you wasting your time on this, you're more of a wrestler type. So you need to focus on this path.
Gotcha.
You're more of a flexible, I call them bendy boys. So you're a bendy boy, so you got to focus on this type of thing.
Yeah.
So I really like focus on what your strengths are.
Yeah.
I eliminate all that unnecessary, like, oh, my body hurts because I just tried to hold for 5 minutes onto somebody's head and it did nothing.
Yeah.
But tire my grips out. Joey, my coach, has a great thing to say. He goes, his goal is, you guys as my students should learn faster than me. And I think that's a fantastic way of thinking.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of the old school jiu-jitsu is just, you'll get there. How do I escape an armbar? You just got to keep showing up. How the fuck does that help me out at all? I'm getting armbarred like 9 times in 5 minutes. I want to learn how to get up an armbar. You know what I mean? It's to like keep you there. Yeah. I'll tell you exactly how to beat me, where my weaknesses are, because I want to get better at them. Yeah. I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't tell them that I'm, to take my back because I'm terrible at my back. No, take my back. Try to get me. If I can get out, awesome. That it's all conducive to your learning. So me teaching private lessons now, I can build my clientele, and really show them improvements. Because I'm thinking about like, if they do private lessons with me, I have like a pool with Joey, and I'll bring them with me to the open mat so they can test themselves out and all that kind of stuff. Gotcha. And I can see them and work with them. Hey, you didn't do this. You didn't focus on that. Yeah. Let's work on that.
So are you looking for more competitive people in jiu-jitsu, or who would be like the clientele that you're looking for?
So I definitely wouldn't mind training some people competitively, but my focus is to people who think they can't do it. Okay. The people that just kind of don't believe in themselves enough to think that they can be consistent in jiu-jitsu. It'll be easier with one-on-ones with me. Yeah. But at the same time, I will push them to like, hey, join an open mat. And I know enough people to be like, hey, you're on this level, give them a little bit of a fight. Or, hey, he's a little shy, take it easy on them, help them out, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a fantastic thing that everybody should know. Like everybody's kids should know it.
Yeah.
Everybody themselves should do something as far as like martial arts. It's just one of those things where it helps you out with your own mental mind space. You don't have to like you can't think about how you're late on rent. You can't think about all this negative stuff in your life when somebody's trying to choke the life out of you.
Very true.
The last thing I'm thinking about is my relationship troubles
Yeah.
when somebody's trying to take my head off.
Yeah.
And that break from reality helps out so much.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as much as I want to promote myself and my business that I'm trying to start, I promote everybody. If it's not martial arts, sewing,
Yeah.
drawing, coloring, woodwork, anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just so happen to know an avenue and relate to people who want to do martial arts, but
Yeah.
they're kind of reluctant to. Because I want to show them, like, hey, this can be really good for you.
Yeah.
And if they don't, it's fine. No harm, no foul. But I
Yeah.
would still promote them to, like, find your thing.
Yeah. For
My
sure.
thing just so happens to have been a violent thing.
Yeah.
But I like how it's like a violent thing, but it's like it's super chill. Like everybody's super cool. Everybody's welcoming.
Right.
You know, if you're at a school where they're kind of like, I'm not gonna bother to know your name until blah blah blah.
Right.
All right, then I'm probably not a good school for you.
Yeah.
School should be welcoming. It's already hard enough on your body, on your mental
Right.
health, all that kind of stuff. Why not have like super cool people be like, yo, you made it today. All right. You know,
Yeah.
a little bit of that. And then you do something hard and then you guys have a cool little chit chat afterwards
Yeah.
and then move on with your day.
For sure.
That helps me out.
If someone was going to find you, would they find you just on like social media, on a website? Where would they find you?
So I'm going to be launching my website. It's called grapplerinc.com.
Okay.
So Grappler Inc. is going to be based off of the networking of various schools. I'm going to be launching the social media of Grappler Inc. on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm going to be making these quick little things and posting all these different gyms. So if you're not in this area,
Yeah.
oh, I live out in Sycamore. There's Sycamore BJJ Club.
Okay.
Check these guys out.
Yeah.
Here's a clip of like how the class runs. Here's how open mat goes.
Very cool.
What if I'm all the way out in Crystal Lake? Well, there's
Yeah.
this place over here. So I'm going to be traveling to different schools, letting them know, like, obviously,
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm here to just freely promote
Yeah.
and kind of network. Because I really do think that more people should be in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And if you don't like this school,
Yeah.
are you willing to travel to this school?
Mm-hmm.
All this kind of stuff. And if a school's not good, I'll kind of just leave it up to the people.
Yeah.
Really, it's just for me to get their name out there
Mm-hmm.
and for them to take it after that. Because
Right.
I'm not going to, put their school on blast and be like, yo, this sucks, this coach sucks, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'll tell them, like, this is a school you can join.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's up to the people to show up.
Yeah.
I don't really like it. I think I'll go to this place.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. You got to remember, you're a grown adult.
Right.
You could train wherever you want to train. No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
If you don't like the way they teach, you don't like the way the atmosphere is,
For sure.
you're 100% within your right to just be like, I'm going to try someplace else or just not train at all. Although I recommend that you train with me. So
For sure.
that'll be launching soon.
I like that as an idea of like going to other school and doing mats and like getting yourself out there, because I think that the one-on-one it just moves you so much faster, because sometimes you're in a class with the night class that I go to, it's like sometimes 20-30 people.
Yep.
And then if you're rolling with like a blue belt or a purple belt or a black belt, like if you're lucky enough that they want to roll with you, like you're going to learn so much. And like if the master comes over, or do you call it coach or master? I'm
Just call him coach.
coach. Okay.
I call him Joey.
I'm trying to remember the proper terms.
I know it's like professor, but at the same time, like, I think that's more old school stuff.
Right.
Because I remember, I think somebody told me a story about how Joey was getting called like sensei or master or something. He goes, oh, you don't have to call me that. And the guy was like, oh, what should I call you? He goes, you can call me Joey. And I'm the same way. I don't need to be called sir or anything like that. Just call me Mark.
Yeah. And being able to, like, they have to run a class. Like, they're not doing privates with you, so they got to run a class.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, like, obviously you're going to usually spar, and like you try to do what it was. But I think the one-on-one will definitely have a place for people.
Definitely.
For sure.
And like I said, I'm not fluent in jujitsu.
Yeah.
I'm getting there, but I know enough to like, all right, don't focus on this. Hey, you're holding on too hard.
For sure.
Focus. Like I am so specific about how everybody should learn. Like when they first begin.
Yeah.
Is heavy defense and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can get you to that point for sure of you're just not getting smashed all the time.
Yeah.
Like your goal when you're a white belt, if you're a white belt out there and you're listening to this, your goal is to be fucking annoying to the blue belts.
Yeah.
They want to smash you and submit you.
Yeah.
I want to make it to where you're not easily like smashable and you're not going to get submitted. Because if they're like, oh yeah, let me just... I want them to like be so underestimating of your abilities that when you don't give them anything and you might be getting out of the submissions and stuff like that, I want them to be able to drive home with no music because they don't deserve it because I couldn't submit the blue belt. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I think that's heavily what I want to try to gear towards is like if people are trying to get into it or if you're already into it and you feel like you need some extra attention.
Yeah.
Come out to me. I any questions you got, if I don't know them, I will find everything I can
for sure.
to teach you whatever you want to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know everything, but I'm determined to get you to an understanding of yourself and jiu-jitsu.
Awesome.
You know, so it's just
for sure.
I want it to go.
Yeah. So we'll wrap it up with the last two questions that everyone gets.
Alrighty.
What would be something from your life that the people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
Life is always tough. And it's going to be tougher than other times in your life. But you got to embrace that toughness because something around the corner is going to be even tougher than that. Mm-hmm. And if you just try to walk in between the raindrops of, my girlfriend or wife is this, I might not be able to pay my bills and this and that. And eventually it'll just build up on you. But if you're like, all right, maybe we need to work on this. Cool. We'll work on it. It's tough. It's hard, but everything that's worth something. Mm-hmm. So everything that's happened in my life was tough. But at the same time, it made me tough enough to pursue this completely new avenue of my life of personally training people and doing private lessons and being solely self-reliant on myself. Yeah. I've always worked for other people. Didn't really work out. So the fear of what if it doesn't work out? Mm-hmm. Well, what was supposed to work out didn't work out. So that toughness, just embrace that shittiness because something equally or more shitty is right around the corner. Yeah. But you can handle it. You can do this. Yeah. You got to be able to tell yourself, I can do this. You got to believe in yourself. I know it's a little preachy, but
no, I like it.
Everything, like I said, I felt like I was stupid in school. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I found my place. Mm-hmm. Like I said, if your place isn't in martial arts, maybe it's in macrame or painting, something. I always want people to just find their thing. Yeah. And if you want to go with it, it's going to be tough. Yeah. Just embrace that toughness.
I dig it. And then what's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
I think health is overall. I think it's if you can't move, do what you can to move what you can. Mm-hmm. If you're not all right, say what you can to who you can. Mm-hmm. As like I myself, that whole anger thing, I had nobody to really talk to. I didn't really feel like anybody understood until I started talking to people. The people that weren't there for me, oh well. Mm-hmm. But the people that were there for me, it helped me out a lot, helped them out a lot. It just created a great bond. So health overall is not just physical and mental. It's overall. It's everything. You got to be able to have your person that you can talk to. Yeah. You got to be able to have your physical thing you can do. Like I said, it doesn't have to be martial arts. It can be tennis or whatever. Right. And being all right. Mm-hmm. You can't just stuff it deep down inside. Just, hey, I'm not feeling good. Not feeling good about my life right now. Yeah. You know, if you need somebody to talk to, just, hey, I just need somebody to listen to. Right. Go for walks. Start small with that. You know, that health is not, going straight to P90X. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just going for a walk after every meal.
Yeah.
It's reading a book. It's doing things for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have the power to do a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people kind of don't think about their health.
Mm-hmm.
Is they're just like, I can't do that.
Right.
I don't want to walk. My knees hurt. It's like, no, you can walk 5 minutes instead of a whole mile.
Mm-hmm.
Then 5 minutes doesn't feel like anything. 10 minutes. So it's all about building yourself, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome.
that's what health is.
I love that. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.